Okay, so have you ever thought about someone actually becoming a global empire today?
It does sound kind of crazy, right? Yeah, like something out of the history books.
Right, but then you see these tech companies, how
Yeah.
they're moving and shaking, you got to wonder.
It's a really interesting question, and you've hit on something important for sure. The whole idea of empires, it's changed. It's not just about armies and land grabs anymore.
It's more about influence now, right?
Exactly. Economic influence, tech influence, even like cultural influence.
Yeah, that's what we're diving deep into today. We've got a ton of research on this, everything from how historical empires rose and fell to who's looking kind of empire-y right now. We've got some stuff on artificial intelligence, AGI, and ASI specifically could be a total game changer.
Right, and to really get where we're going, it helps to look back at, where we've been. Those historical empires, the Romans, Mongols, British, they all got powerful through a mix of things.
Was it all just brute force all the time?
Well, military strength was part of it for sure, but it was usually combined with smart alliances, getting a hold of key resources, and knowing how to adapt when things shifted.
I see, I see.
Like, think about the Roman Empire. They controlled the Mediterranean Sea, huge economic edge, right? Logistics, too. Then you got the Mongols. Masters of horseback warfare. That's how they conquered so much land.
Yeah.
And the British Empire, their navy was top-notch, helped them build that global trade network.
It's interesting how they used the tools of their time to gain power, right? The
Yeah.
Silk Road was basically like the internet of its day,
Yeah.
connecting everything, East and West, ideas, culture, goods. But eventually, even those big empires, they all crumbled.
That's right, yeah. Usually it was a combo of pressures inside and out that took them down.
Ah, okay.
Overexpansion. That meant stretched resources, borders that were weak, then corruption within, instability. It all weakens the foundation.
Yeah.
And then new tech comes along, rival powers. They challenge the dominance.
Makes sense.
Take gunpowder, for example. Changed warfare forever. Empires that stuck to the old ways, they couldn't keep up.
So it's like this cycle. Empires rise and fall, almost a pattern repeating through history. But you mentioned earlier how the tools of power have changed, right? So what are those tools now in the 21st century?
Yeah, it's shifted. Today's battleground, it's less about physical territory and more about data, algorithms, who controls information globally. And in this new landscape, there are some contenders that are starting to look a lot like, well, empires.
Okay, so let's get into these modern-day would-be emperors. You said some of them might be surprising. I'm guessing we're not just talking about countries anymore?
You got it. While countries like the US and China are still major players, we're seeing what we might call digital empires emerging.
Digital empires.
These are your tech giants. Google, Amazon, not Meta. They have massive amounts of data. They influence global communication, and they shape how we experience the online world through their platforms and, well, their algorithms.
So they're not conquering land, they're conquering our attention, our data, our minds even, in a way. Like a digital version of the Roman Empire, controlling the flow of info and commerce through their massive network. What about traditional empires, though? The countries. They still in the running?
Oh, absolutely. The United States, with its military, its tech innovation, its cultural influence, it's still holding a lot of cards. Silicon Valley, arguably the center of the tech universe. But the U.S. also has its internal problems, like political polarization and growing distrust of big tech from the public.
Right, right. And what about China? They've been making some serious moves on the global stage.
China is an interesting case. They have that centralized government, which means they can put policies in place fast, deploy tech rapidly. They're pouring money into AI, have access to huge data sets because of their population. And then there's their Belt and Road Initiative. It's all about building infrastructure, trade links across Asia, Europe, Africa. Prime example of how they want to expand their influence, both economically and geopolitically. But China's also getting a lot of international pushback on their human rights record, concerns about their military power.
It sounds like the U.S. and China are the main contenders in this 21st century empire game. But are there any other players we should keep an eye on?
Well, there are a few dark horses worth mentioning.
Oh, interesting.
The European Union, for example. With their regulations and economic integration, they've got a lot of soft power. Then there's India. Their tech sector is booming, huge population. They could be a major player, but they still have those challenges like poverty, infrastructure. And then you also have these alliances like BRICS Plus. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a few others. They're trying to challenge the existing world order. It's like a big chess game with lots of players making their moves.
It's a complicated geopolitical landscape, that's for sure. But you said something earlier that could totally change the game. Artificial intelligence. What role could AI play in shaping the empires of the future?
AI, especially AGI and ASI, could be the most powerful tool we've ever created. Whoever masters it first could have an advantage like we've never seen.
Let's define those terms for our listeners. What exactly is AGI and ASI, and why are they such a big deal?
Okay, so artificial general intelligence, or AGI, refers to AI that can basically do any intellectual task a human can. It's AI that's as smart as us or even smarter across many different areas. And then artificial superintelligence, ASI, that takes it even further.
Yeah.
ASI would surpass human intelligence in pretty much every way. Imagine AI that can solve really complex problems, make strategic decisions, even innovate at a level we can't even grasp.
Okay, so that's both exciting and a little scary. It sounds like whoever controls ASI could basically control the world, right? Is it that simple?
It's not just about control, it's about alignment. We have to make sure these AI systems are developed ethically, that their goals match up with human values.
Yeah.
If we get a misaligned AI, one that's pursuing goals that are against ours, well, that could be a serious threat.
Hmm. So how could AI shift the balance of power in the future when it comes to empires?
Imagine a country, or even a company, that has ASI. They could potentially use it to develop crazy advanced tech, dominate the global economy, maybe even control how information flows around the world. The possibilities are almost limitless, both good and bad. That's why it's so important to understand AI and what it means for us right now. It's not just a tech issue, it's a societal one. It touches on ethics, politics, philosophy.
So we've got this mix of traditional powers, these rising tech giants, and the wild card of AI.
Hmm.
It sounds like the race to become the next global empire is going to be anything but predictable. But who are the frontrunners in this AI-powered race to the top?
That's a question we'll dig into much deeper after a quick break.
Stay tuned.
So, we've been talking about all these potential empires popping up in the AI age, but let's shift gears a little bit and think about you. How could all this global power shifting actually impact your life?
Yeah, it's all well and good to talk about these big historical empires and tech giants and super intelligent AI, but how does it all actually translate to what people experience every day? Like, how could these potential empires affect your job, your freedoms,
Yeah.
your future?
Well, one of the most direct ways you might feel the impact is in the job market. AI and automation are already changing the way work happens. And as these technologies get even more advanced, some jobs are going to become automated. But at the same time, there will be new jobs popping up that require different skills.
So it's not necessarily a case of robots taking over all the jobs, right? It's more like the types of skills that are in demand will change. So what can people do to, prepare for this shift?
The key is to be adaptable, to be open to lifelong learning. Focus on developing those skills that are uniquely human. Things like critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, emotional intelligence. Those are areas where AI is still struggling to compete.
It's good to know there are still areas where humans have a clear advantage. But what about the impact on our freedoms? Could these future empires, especially the ones powered by advanced AI, lead to a world that's more controlled, less free?
It's a valid concern for sure. There's definitely the potential for AI to be used for things like surveillance, censorship, social control, and we're already seeing examples of this in some parts of the world.
Oh, really? Like where?
Take China, for example. Their social credit system uses AI to track people's behavior, rank them. People who follow the government's rules get rewarded, and those who don't, well, they get punished.
It sounds kind of creepy, like something out of a dystopian novel. It really makes you think about the balance between security and privacy in this AI-powered world. But couldn't AI also be used to actually enhance freedom?
Absolutely. AI has the potential to really empower people. It could provide personalized education, healthcare, give people access to information they might not otherwise have, and it could also help us tackle some of those big, complex social problems we're facing and maybe even create a more equitable world. The real question is how AI is developed and used, whose values are baked into these systems, who controls access to them. These are things we need to be asking right now.
So it sounds like the future of freedom in the AI world isn't set in stone. It really depends on the choices we make today about how we develop and use these technologies. But how can individuals make a difference in all of this? I mean, we're not all AI experts or politicians.
You don't have to be a tech genius to have a say in this. The first step is just staying informed. Read up on AI, understand the potential benefits and risks, get involved in discussions about the ethics of it all.
So basically, don't just scroll past those AI articles, right? Click and read them. Educate yourself.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially in a world that's changing so fast. And remember, We're not just passive bystanders in this tech revolution. We have a say in how AI is developed and used. We can demand transparency, accountability, ethical considerations from the companies and governments that are shaping this tech.
So it's not just about adapting to the changes AI brings, but actively trying to shape those changes for the better. What are some concrete things people can do to make their voices heard?
While you can support organizations and initiatives that are pushing for ethical AI development, advocate for policies that prioritize transparency and accountability in AI systems. You can contact your elected officials, sign petitions, participate in public forums.
So it's about being an informed and engaged citizen, using your voice, your vote, to influence the direction of technology. Are there any other ways individuals can contribute to a more positive AI future?
Don't underestimate the power of your own actions, even the small ones. Every time you choose to support a company that's prioritizing ethical AI, every time you have a conversation about AI ethics, every time you learn a new skill to adapt to the job market, you're helping to build a better future.
So it's a combination of individual actions and collective efforts. Speaking of collective efforts, you mentioned earlier that we can learn from the patterns of historical empires. How can understanding the past help us navigate this AI-powered future?
History can teach us a lot about how empires rise and fall and why. Many empires crumbled because they overreached, or there was corruption, or they failed to adapt to change. If we want to avoid making those same mistakes in the age of AI, we need to pay attention to those lessons. We need to be very aware of the potential for AI to be misused, and we need to be proactive in addressing the ethical concerns.
So don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Be aware of the pitfalls of power, the importance of adapting to change. Are there any specific historical examples that really stand out as being relevant to the AI age?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like the Roman Empire's decline, that's a classic example of the dangers of overexpansion and internal corruption. Their territory got so vast it became impossible to manage effectively. And their political system was just riddled with infighting and instability. Then you look at the British Empire. Their reliance on colonial exploitation ultimately led to their downfall. The colonized populations eventually rose up and demanded their independence. These are just a couple of examples, but they really highlight the importance of ethical governance, sustainable practices, respect for human rights.
So it's not just about technological progress, right? It's about social and political and ethical progress as well. We need to make sure that as we develop and deploy AI, we're also working to build a more just and equitable and sustainable world.
Exactly. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. The future of AI is not some predetermined thing. It really hinges on the choices we make today.
That brings us back to the question we posed earlier. If we could design a global system for the future, one that really prioritizes human well-being and ethical AI development, what would that look like?
That's a question we'll explore in a lot more detail after we take a quick break.
So we've been on this journey, right? Exploring empires from ancient times to the digital age. Now, let's try to imagine a future where AI is actually used to create a global system that puts human well-being front and center. Like if we could design this ideal empire of the future, what would it even look like?
It's a cool thought experiment. Instead of picturing a classic empire with one person in charge, imagine a global network of interconnected communities.
Okay, I like that.
Each community keeps its own unique culture, its strengths, but they're all linked by this commitment to human flourishing and ethical AI development.
So it's less about top-down control and more about everyone working together based on shared values. Sounds pretty good. But who gets to make the decisions in this network? How do we make sure everyone has a voice, that power isn't just concentrated in the hands of a few?
Diversity is key, for sure. You need scientists, ethicists, artists, policymakers, regular people from all walks of life. Everyone needs a seat at the table.
Right, makes sense.
That way, the way AI develops reflects all these different perspectives and priorities, not just the interests of a select few.
That diversity of thought is so important. Helps avoid bias, make sure AI benefits everyone. But how do we keep this idealistic network from, I don't know, collapsing? Like, what about conflicting interests, power struggles? History shows that even systems with good intentions can get corrupted.
Oh, absolutely. That's where you need really strong ethical frameworks, transparent governance structures,
Okay.
clear guidelines for how AI is developed and used, making sure that the tech always aligns with human values, human goals. And you need ways to hold people accountable, make sure no one entity gets too much control.
Almost like we need a global constitution for the AI age, right?
Yeah.
With checks and balances to prevent abuses of power. What about AI's role in all of this, though? Is it just a tool in this ideal future, or does it have a more active part in shaping our destiny?
In this scenario, AI wouldn't just be a tool, it would be a partner. Think about AI systems that can help us solve global challenges like climate change, poverty, disease. AI that can help us make better decisions, govern more effectively, maybe even understand ourselves better.
Wow, that's a powerful idea. AI as a collaborator, not a competitor or a threat. But as AI keeps getting more advanced, maybe even smarter than humans, how can we do sure it'll stay aligned with our values?
That's the big question, right? The million-dollar question. And it's one that's going to need constant research, open discussion, and yeah, a good dose of vigilance. We got to invest in AI safety research, figuring out how to align AI's goals with our own, even as these systems become super complex. And we need to encourage open communication, collaboration between AI developers, ethicists, policymakers, and the public.
So it's about building trust, but also being cautious. We can't just assume AI will always act in our best interests, especially as it gets more powerful.
Exactly. You got to anticipate the challenges, figure out solutions before things turn into a crisis. It's about making sure AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
This whole conversation has been really eye-opening. It's a good reminder that we actually have the power to shape our future. Even with these crazy transformative technologies like AI, the future isn't something that just happens to us. We create it through the choices we make, the actions we take.
Couldn't agree more. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by how fast tech is changing. But we can't just sit back and watch. We have to engage, question, imagine, and most importantly, act, so we can create a future where AI empowers humanity.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into empires, past, present, and future. We hope this got you thinking about the role of AI in our world, what it could mean for all of us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.